Hey everyone, so some of you have watched my jump from year 11 to year 12 video, and a lot of you are asking about the jump from year 10 to year 11. So here's me answering your questions. Now, I know that some of you probably had asked what's the jump from year 10 to year 11 because you kind of wanted to understand what VCE is like and maybe more so about like the stress associated with VCE. But I will save that video for another time, and this time I'll focus more on the actual changes in terms of one grade to another. If you are someone who is in year 12 this year, if any of the things that I'm saying resonates with you guys, or if you want to add more with what I've said about your own previous experience about the jump from year 10 to year 11, then go for it. Year 11 can be seen as a trial of year 12. So a lot of you may know that year 11 doesn't really count towards your final mark in terms of your ATAR. However, it's a really good way for you to experience what it might be like in year 12 so that you're ready to go. So some of the things will include which subjects do you enjoy and which ones might you actually drop, because when you're in year 10 and you're selecting your subjects for year 11, you've probably got a selection of subjects that you've got, but you don't know until you actually try them whether or not you like it, whether or not it's too hard for you or too easy for you. So year 11 is a good time to experiment with that and then chop and change subjects if you need to. On top of that, because now you are experiencing VCE, you'll understand what it's like to have SATs and exams and to have a lot of workload put on you and to have that independence and drive to do well in those particular subjects. In terms of the actual workload, personally, I didn't really find that it was too big of a jump, but that might have just been me and my school. It's really just dependent on you guys. I think in year 10, they really do prepare you quite well for the transition into year 11, because by year 10, you are starting to get more homework, more assessments, and that pretty much leads you into year 11. So schools actually do that quite well. So like I said about year 11 being a serious trial, you can definitely work out your study habits as well in year 11 to see what works best for you, so that way by the time you're in year 12, again, you're ready to go and you know what works best. Whether it's studying in different ways, so whether or not you're a visual learner or you're somebody who needs to actually do the work in order to learn, that type of stuff, experiment while you're in year 11, because you've got that opportunity to do that. And if it doesn't work out well, it's not going to be a big issue as if you're in year 12 when your SAT marks and your exam marks are really counting towards that final mark at the end of the year. Personally, for me, it took me a really long time to find the right study technique, and looking back, I wish I had experimented more, because I feel like if I had tried different study techniques, which I'll do in a later video at some point, then potentially I would have studied more effectively and more productively as well. So definitely take year 11 seriously if you can. You don't have to take everything to heart. So if you don't do as well in an assessment as you hoped you would, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. See it as a trial. You are testing every little thing that you do so that you can perfect it as much as possible by the time you head into year 12. Timetable changes. You guys are probably going to be doing 6 subjects in year 11. So one of the best things about being in VC is that you have the liberty to have spares. So pretty much periods where you don't have classes and you can pretty much do whatever you want. It varies from school to school, but I know for my school, we were actually allowed to go out during our spares. We were allowed to do whatever we wanted. But I think it's really important that knowing that you have spares, try to use them wisely. So I don't mean you have to study every single time you have a spare, but if you have a spare and it's a good period for you to practice writing an essay or doing those chemistry questions just before a big SAC the next day, then maybe you should utilize that. I definitely found in year 11, particular areas that I like to study in during my spare, or particular people that I like to study with as well, who would work really productively with me. By the time you get into VCE, it's a lot of independence, which is fantastic. So what I worked out personally was if I had spares at the start of the day or at the end of the day, that meant I could either go to school late or go home early. So that was really fantastic. I would either have a little sleep in or just go out at the end of the day to catch up with some friends and then go home to study. But if I had spares during the day, I would try to use them productively and I would try to study well during those periods. Outside of school changes, you students are probably around 15 to 17 if you're going from year 10 to year 11. And so, this is a really big period in your life where you're starting to transition into adulthood. So of course there's going to be a lot of social changes. So you're going to have a lot of birthdays, probably going out on the weekends, doing a lot of new things, whatever it is. I think that that's absolutely okay, and I think one of the important things to remember when you go into VCE is please don't just give up on absolutely everything else in life and think that all you need to do is study. Balance it out. That's just the one thing I can only just kind of into your brain. And the reason why sometimes it's so frustrating to say is because I was that student who was like, no, I'm going to study all the time. I don't want to listen to anything else about, balancing life, well-being, exercise, things like that. But looking back, honestly, it is so true, because I started implementing that stuff when I was in university, so years later, and that's when I finally found my real studying techniques and how I studied best, and that was through balancing everything. So because in year 11 you do have that independence, please use it wisely, be smart about it. And I think again, year 11 is honestly just a really good trial run of how you can go in year 12. So use that to your advantage. See what works best for you, see what doesn't work, and then by the end of the year, you have put yourself in the position where you're going to be ready to go for this very exciting year of year 12. So hopefully you guys like this video. That was pretty much what I experienced going from year 10 to year 11. If you want to check out my video from year 11 to year 12, that's where I personally felt that there were a lot of big changes. So I talk more about expectations, about workload, that type of stuff. So definitely go check that out. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment below on how you've been finding the change from year 10 to year 11. Here in year 12, please share your advice for the younger cohort on what you felt to be a big change or a minor change. And I hope you all have a lovely week, and I will see you next Monday. Bye! I've really seen a correlation with the highest scoring students and how they go about studying and how they treat VCE in general and where their mentality is at.